собой контроль теряешь. Знаю я, как невозможно.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dram Show with me, Chris Dram. Right, okay, this afternoon. It would appear that my relegation of Isle of Jura to the axis of evil has obviously, or the news of it has obviously reached the distillery, because lo and behold, the White Mackay rep was duly dispatched with bearing samples, basically, of like, and although he didn't say so in as many words, they pretty much wanted me to sort of recant, shall we say, reappraise what they're bottling, and say I was wrong, Your Honour, Governor. It was all a big mistake. It was all a dream. I've woken up out of the shower, and Jura is an absolutely stunning whiskey that I must have millions of bottles of, and praise till the ends of the earth. Yeah, we'll see whether that happens or not, shan't we? Anyway, it's I guess probably we'll start with a bit of history, shall we? As is our wont. Right, Jura, it's a smallish distillery. It's got a capacity of about 2.2 million litres. It was originally built in 1810 by some bloke called Archibald Campbell. Didn't last a huge. Well, it lasted about close to 100 odd years. It was closed in 1901 and completely demolished. So it was rebuilt in 1960. So basically, the current distillery only dates from 1960 when it was rebuilt by a company called Charles McKinley and Company. And it's been pretty much in constant use ever since. It was purchased by White Mackay in 1993, who've done a remarkable job when it comes to marketing. Apparently, looking at the sales figures, their overall sales were up 50% in 2010, and a further 37% in 2011. And now sell somewhere in the region of 1.6 million bottles. So somebody likes it. It's close to sort of becoming one of the top 10 distilleries with regards to sales in the UK market, and they're working hard and pumping it out, which is probably where the issues actually begin. It has to be said. Enough of all of that. You know what I think about Jura. I've kind of not toyed with them. They've been on the verge of the axis of evil for quite some time now, and essentially, I just tasted too many poor bottlings. Admittedly, the last tasting session I had of the Jura range was in miniatures, and we all know how the whisky industry doesn't think that real whisky drinkers buy miniatures, which has got to be the reason they think like that, because otherwise they wouldn't put such dire rubbish into them. Same goes for the travel retail market, but that's a whole different rant, shall we say, which we're not going to get into today. No. We're gonna focus on Jura. Incidentally, I tasted an independent bottling of Jura last week. It was Hunterlang Old Malt Cask 21-year-old, which was absolutely stunning, unbelievably good. I mean, it really blew me away. I mean, there I am expecting a bit of a ho-hum kind of whiskey, and it was just absolutely fantastic. American oak, just vibrant and not awful at all. Really nice. And so I mean, I've reserved a case of that, so that should be in fairly shortly. So if you do like Jura, I haven't got a price for you yet because I've not worked one out, but 21-year-old Jura is probably going to come in around about sort of 90 to £100, but God, it's fabulous whiskey. But anyway, basically, let's get back to this current tasting. Like I said, I think it's basically the distillery want me to sort of and I'm not kind of praising myself. I'm not I'm not Dave Broom. I'm not people with that kind of leverage within the whisky industry, but the whisky industry is pretty small in relative terms. Basically, you know, most people know everybody else, and you know, everybody knows what's going on. You know, big brands tend to sort of keep, you know, fingers on what's being said about their whiskies, and certainly nobody likes criticism. You know, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of some, you know, why did you criticise our whiskey kind of thing on several occasions, because nobody likes to be criticised. But at the end of the day is, if you know, if we all sat here and said everything was wonderful, everything, you know, you're doing is absolutely fantastic, then there wouldn't be the sort of the necessity to basically keep striving for a quality product, you know. And personally, I think I wouldn't sort of just criticise something out of hand. You know, I think criticism has to be like praise. It has to be kind of, you know, constructive. And hopefully, you know, any criticism I've sort of levelled at various whiskies over the years has been, you know, backed up by, you know, reasoning why. But anyway, I think that's probably enough about that. And should we have a look at this afternoon's lineup? Right, as you can obviously see, I don't actually have enough glasses for this afternoon's lineup. I mean, this is a ridiculous situation. I mean, yeah, normally I would just do the 4, but you know, Jura were kind enough to give me 5 samples. That's impressive, and I can tell they wanted to impress me. I mean, you've got such bottlings as the 1977 and the 30-year-old. So you know, they're pulling out the big guns here. I mean, you know, these are not cheap. I mean, this is about what, 30-year-old is about, what's that, about 400 quid a bottle. 77, that's 36 years old. That's about what, 600 and something pounds a bottle. So you know, I'll say they're pulling out the big guns. But anyway, the issue I've never had issue with older Jura. The issue I have is with the sort of the younger stuff, the stuff that's, you know, being bottled now at sort of, you know, 10, 16, that kind of stuff. But anyway, we'll reappraise the 10-year-old. This is the 10-year-old. It's called the Isle of Jura Origins and is bottled at 40%. So we'll reappraise this one. This is the Superstition. It's a no age statement whisky. It's bottled at 43% and relatively lightly peated. So I remember when this was first released, funnily enough, at 46% was actually really enjoyable. Really liked that. Subsequent tastings have not been particularly up to quite that. So this is the 30-year-old, bottled I believe this year. And bottled at 44%, and this is the 1977 37-year-old, again bottled this year, 36-year-old, sorry. I believe it's called the Juar, Juar. I don't know whether I pronounced that right or not, but it's a selection of 3 casks of first fill American oak, which had its final 12 months finishing in ruby port casks, so could be interesting. We'll see how that one pans out. And the final one, which I will get a glass when I've got finished one of those ones, is the Isle of Jura Prophecy, which came out a couple of years ago, which is their profoundly peated. I remember the last time I tasted it, I wouldn't call it profoundly peated, but I mean in within the sort of parameters of Jura, should we say, it was fairly heavily peated and all sherried. So again, no age statement on that, bottled at 46%. So I think it's that's this afternoon's little lineup. This will take some time to get through, so best we get a start then. Right, let's start at the beginning then. Let's have a look at the 10-year-old. This is obviously, I would guess, probably their biggest selling whisky. It's the you know, the one that most people will opt to buy for or go for. the 10-year-old, which they've now called the Origins. So deep breaths. Let's have a look at it. It ain't changed that much since I last tasted. Kind of, you get the sort of slightly sort of raspberry conserve kind of spicy red fruit first, and then the American oak starts to slowly creep in with sort of toffee and caramel and vanilla, a bit of dark chocolate, some spice, a little bit of smoke, a little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of apricot, some bitter chocolate on the finish, but not too bitter because it's just got that lovely honeyed vanilla oak, which is just kind of like, you know, wrapping up all these kind of chocolatey bitter tannins, and balance on that is just absolutely sublime. You know, yep, 660 quid. I mean, that is just worth every penny. 660, well, 600 and something odd quid. That is just absolutely stunning. I mean, the length on that just goes on and on and on. I mean, yeah, right, it's heavy on the oak. You're going to have to like a lot of oak kind of character to enjoy a whiskey like this, but, you know, even if you don't like a lot of oak, certainly if you don't like a lot of American oak, you have to basically admit that this is an impressive dram. I mean, I love a lot of American oak, so to me this is the nads. I tell you what, this is not far short of you know, the Pulteney 40 for sort of, you know, best whiskey of the year I've tasted. I think the Pulteney 40 just has the edge on this, but I reckon this is pretty damn good. So hopefully White and Mackay. That's a bit of a vindication, but anyway, but we'll come back to the summing up in due course. So let's see what the nose gives us. It's young, it's briny, it's fishy, it's pretty intensely peated. It's got that sort of, not quite medicinal, but briny, camphor-led kind of peat. It's actually pretty heavily peated. I mean, I forget when the last time I tasted this, but I remember it being a lot more about the sherry, but it's dense, very clean sherry, again, I hasten to add. It's robust, it's big, and there's no distillery character whatsoever. I suppose you could argue that's not a bad thing given what the Superstition was like, but yeah, it's. I think if you like sort of big sherry and big peat, then, you know, absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I mean, this is probably the reason why this is the only Jura bottling I actually stock. I mean, if I was being very, very critical, I would say that there is just a little bit of cardboardiness to it. It's not getting away from its roots at all, but I think there's enough sherry, there's enough peat that kind of deflects, you know, the your kind of senses, shall we say, you know, and I think it's only because you could argue that I'm actually looking for it that I can find it, if you see what I mean. I think if you were sort of tasting this without sort of any preconceptions, and I'm not saying I'm putting any preconceptions on this whatsoever, but if you were tasting this kind of, I don't know, I think you'd probably, you know, just miss the slight cardboardiness, but yeah, it's not bad. I mean, like I said, it's big peat, it's big sherry, you know, it's if you like that kind of thing, then this is your baby, as they say. Anyway, palate. That's short. That's drying. Peat does come kind of back though, but it's sort of it's a big molasses treacly sherry mouthful basically. It's obviously the Gonzalez Baez big Oloroso, but it's a lot of that big chocolatey, rich, lots and lots of peat. It's not bad actually. I mean, the palate is not bad at all. I mean, I kind of quite like it, to be honest with you. I mean, all right, it's not particularly long. It's a bit short. It's kind of a bit abrupt. The peat does, I guess, sort of kind of linger after the sherry, but you taste it, and the sherry kind of like just is kind of all big and brief, and then just stops. You know, there's some pleasant peat after it. Yeah, it's nice. It is what it is, I guess. Quite oily. Yeah, it's good. It's not bad at all, I guess, for relatively young Jura, because, like I said, you can't taste any distillery character. Right, okay. This was a bit of a mammoth tasting, it has to be said. Let's sum this little one up then, shall we? Is it going to change my opinion of Jura? Well, I'm afraid it isn't. I mean, I think this particular tasting is probably just not entrenched in my opinion, but it just goes to show that Jura once upon a time distilled stunning spirit. You know, I mean, you know, you can't argue with the quality of the 30-year-old and the 1977. I mean, both of those bottles are sublimely elegant. They're beautiful. They're kind of like, you know, whiskies that you'd give your right arm for. They are just, you know, that good. But, and I think the thing is with whiskey distilleries, you just can't rely on past glories, because, you know, the majority of customers are going to be buying, you know, the entry level stuff, the no age statement, the 10-year-old, the whatever, you know, and frankly, the 10-year-old is just not good enough. I'm not technical. I mean, I have worked at a distillery. I know the sort of, you know, how you distill whiskey, and personally, I think that, I don't know what it is. Maybe they are just distilling too fast. They're taking too wide a cut. Then I'm not saying more interested in sort of quantity over quality, but I think the thing is that if you're selling 1.6 million bottles a year, there is certainly some pressure to get the stuff distilled, you know, and get it out there. Maybe sort of. I mean, I remember when Jura was an 8-year-old, and it was fresh and it was vibrant. It probably wasn't the most complex whiskey on the face of the planet, but, you know, it had sort of charm, and I think that's what Jura has lost. Jura had charm, and this 10-year-old, I'm afraid, is just absolutely charmless. Superstition, pretty much the same thing. It's just kind of young, marry, cardboardy Jura, which they're trying to kind of mask with a bit of peat. To a certain extent, you can say exactly the same for the Prophecy, except there's more sherry and there's more peat, and thus there's more coverage, for want of a better word. And you don't kind of taste the distillery character at all. Like I said, the 30-year-old and the 1977 are just sublime whiskies, and I keep, like I said, Jura once produced magnificent spirit, and if they could recapture what they were doing, you know, 25, 30 odd years ago, then, you know, I would be a happy bunny, because I don't like sort of rubbish whiskey. You know, I don't want to taste rubbish. You know, I want all the sort of whiskey that I taste to be really, really good. But that's just that's the industry. It just doesn't happen, you know. But there is so much poor whiskey floating around. There's so many sulphur sherry casks. There's so many caramel ruined whiskies that it's, you know, it's frightening. And just you just have to say thank God there's some bloody good distilleries that don't practice all of that kind of stuff. And I guess, you know, having tasted five drams, I'm kind of waffling a little bit, so I probably ought to sort of round this up. So anyway, coming back to the whole point of this, until there is a significant improvement in the 10-year-old and the younger juror, I can't see it coming out of the doing a Thule, so to speak, and being elevated from the axis of evil. I mean, like I said, it's obvious that sort of right from tasting their old spirit that, you know, they distilled stunning spirit, you know, back in the day. But it's the current spirit that really needs some work on. So hopefully, you know, White Mackay won't be too upset with my appraisal of Jura. So I guess all that's left to say is grab your 30-year-old, good dramming, good afternoon.